So today I thought I would give and share a little bit of an energy update as to what's going on at the moment in the world because there are so many things going on at the same time. And you obviously don't need me to tell you that in terms of like the news and what's going on that we see with our five senses. But let's talk more about what we're all feeling and how we are literally mutating and our experience of life is also mutating. So, there's a couple different things I wanted to bring up in this episode. The first thing is that just the overall picture is that life is getting a lot more frequency based than matter based. And so, as a result, people's dreams are getting so much more active because whilst the body and our physical experience is the most dense and the one that we identify with the most, there are also so many other parts of us that are coexisting at the same time. And for as long as we've been over identified with physical matter, we've been less in touch with those other parts of us. But now that we are moving into the shift of being less identified with matter and more identified with frequency, with energy, with vibration, we are actually sort of reconnecting with those parts of us. Now, you know that human design is a science of your aura, which is your energy body, but we also have loads of other different kinds of bodies. And one of them is the astral body, for example. So, one of the things that is happening much more often, but also that we're realizing is happening more, is what we call astral traveling in our dreams, which is traveling to different dimensions, visiting other people in their dreams, really going off into other realms. And then also having more real life dreams, but ones that are much more coded with like direct messages and ahas and realizations for us. And prophetic dreams, right? Dreams about the future or what could happen. Dreams that contain messages that are sometimes coded from our higher self. So in the past, we've sort of seen dreams as like a bit of processing, a bit of your subconscious kind of clearing. And there were these stories of these kind of more special dreams happening like once in a way. Whereas right now, our dream life is mass on a whole, shifting to a more mystical experience for all of us. So, the first thing I want to say to people is that if you've been having those kind of dreams, that's amazing. Step one is to recognize them as the gifts that they are and to really start to see your dream life as what it is. It's a third of your existence on this planet, give or take, and it deserves as much reverence and respect and seriousness as the 16 hours that you see with your eyes, right? So that is happening. It is actually happening. It's not just made up in your mind. The stuff that you are experiencing in your dreams, take it seriously, take it as being real. Okay, it's not real in terms of what you can see with your normal eyes, but it's what you're seeing with your third eye. It's as important in terms of the information and the intel that it contains, if not more important. And everybody has different kind of patterns with their own dreams, right? So even if we compare ours, Taylor, I think it will be really interesting to think about and give people ideas of how their dreams could be. So you were telling me about yours the other day, something that's been happening to you recently.
Yeah. So you've mentioned that we do a lot more in our dreams than I'm even aware of. I think there's a whole layer of human design that ties in like even what what each person does within their dreams that I'm not even privy to. But something I've just noticed in my recent dreams is for me it's been not memories because like I don't remember these things ever happening to me, but last week for example, there's something I've been working through and I woke up from a dream. I was a kid with my cousin who was a kid and she was rolling around in the mud and I there was like there's a specific feeling I was having in my body in this dream watching her as my child self, and I woke up and it just sent this like zing of clarity through me of something I had been working through in my waking life. I needed to remember what that feeling was as a kid, that specific feeling, and it made something click into place that I've been working through in my waking life. So I know that yours are different though. So it's not that we're all having the same kind of dreams.
Hmm. Because if you think about the hundreds and thousands of different energetic planes that we can go up to, and let's say that each one of us has more of an affinity of form with certain realms, right? Then it would make sense that as a humanness as a whole, we cover the whole ground, but each one of us is kind of like specialized in some of them, right? So for me, and I'm still making a lot of sense out of my dreams, and I have a crazy level of detail of understanding, like, um, you know, it really depends on what I ate the day before, and it really depends on what happened to me the day before. But I'm really getting to know that my dream pattern is that whatever I'm doing in my dreams, and I'm not really necessarily having dreams where it's like I'm doing something. It's more like information is getting told to me as I'm sleeping. And my work has actually been really about taking that as my sort of instruction of what I'm meant to do the next day. And I know that I need to listen, but the second I wake up, I forget. And that's an experience a lot of people have, is that we don't remember our dreams straight away. We forget what they are. But I'm really learning that it's like direct directions, literally directions and clarity that the universe is giving me, not through form of a picture necessarily. Um, but of what to do. And then I'll get like weird ones. Like, for example, on the day we're recording this, last night I was having this dream about me and my sister. We're both in New York right now, going back to London at different days. And I had this dream where we're like both trying to figure out how to get back to London, but we can't. And then I wake up this morning and there was a fire at Heathrow Airport. So the whole airport shut down. And so it's not like a prophecy for me because it's not saying this is going to happen. It's more like I'm somehow picking up the energy of something that's going on in the real world that I'm not really sure why it's coming to me. I don't even know what to do with it yet. So sometimes that kind of thing happens to me, but mostly it's like direct, obvious direction of like, do this tomorrow or tell this person this, or, this is how something should get sorted out. So do it. And I fall into the trap sometimes of not taking it seriously because the alarm goes off on the phone, you open up the Instagram, or you start thinking about stuff in your earthly life, and you have to remember, like, hold on a second, I'm equal parts divine as I am earthly. And I think the role of our dreams is to connect us back. Every school of ancient wisdom teaches that when we are asleep, our soul is like up above, closer to the creator, or it's traveling, or it's detached. And so it's this ability that we get to recharge and reconnect with our divine self. And then the moment you wake up is this amazing opportunity that you get to kind of stay plugged into the divine, to do 16 more hours of earthly time, and then to get another recharge. Basically, it's not really to rest the body, because I don't believe that God, the divine, the universe would only make sleep to recharge the body. I think it would just figure out a way for the body to be self-charging. So there's something about the fact that we go up, we get our remit, we get our juice, we get our reconnection to the purity of the soul without the sort of restrictions and limitations of the body. And then we get to bring that unlimitedness back into the limited experience, for want of a better word.
Yeah, actually, I'm glad you mentioned that because I remember when you first told me about the fact that there were things that we do in our dreams, and I remember I said I don't want to hear about it. It scares me. Cuz I think the reason it scared me is because I was worried that if I knew too much about what I did in my dreams, I wouldn't get restful sleep, or I would think too much about the going to sleep. And actually, without knowing any information, I have sort of just slightly leaned into the fact that there might be something more happening in my dreams than I realize. And I have noticed that I remember them so much more often now because I'm comfortable in knowing there's something going on that's more than what I realize, but feeling safe, that my body is safe, it's in a safe location, I've taken care of it, like that kind of helps me keep me feel grounded. And I do feel like my physical body gets plenty of rest, and now I get excited to go to sleep because for me, it's, you said it's actually information, it's movies for me. I see
Mm.
I see vivid like character arcs. I see vivid narratives, and I typically wake up with like a feeling associated with them. That is what I'm supposed to take into the next day, not
Mhm.
necessarily like instructions.
Mm.
It's actually just, it's helping me understand life better, I think, if I had to articulate it.
Yeah. My well, you know Tommy. A lot of people listening to this podcast know Tommy Lappy. He's one of yeah, he's one of my co-conspirators. He does a lot on human design. He writes such beautiful I mean, he's a deep psychic. So anyway, he once said to me, you know, when you're analyzing your dreams, it's actually not so much about what happened in the dreams, it's about how they made you feel, because it's the feelings that has the sort of, you know, like your dream, the sort of intel about reconnecting you to that same frequency of the thread of what you were experiencing in your current life. So we're so multidimensional. There's so much of us that is also happening that is like, for want of a better word, off planet. And we are really being able to see this more. So I wanted to share this because I think a lot of people, I have heard just anecdotally, a lot of people having next level types of dreams or dreaming more often. I remember like my father has said he never dreamed, he claimed he never dreamt in his whole life. And in the last 6 months, he said, I've started to have a few. Or my cousin who already has insane dreams is having like deeply prophetic dreams. So it runs the whole gamut between people who, you know, already are in touch with their gifts, people who aren't, people who are active dreamers, people who aren't. So that's one of the things I really wanted to sort of highlight at the moment, which is a normal byproduct of happening of things that happen when we move from more matter focused to frequency focused. um the other thing is that we can really be feeling as if like, yes, my eyes are watching me go through life, but I don't really feel like I'm here, like in my body. And I don't mean that in a ungrounded way or a dissociated way necessarily, although you can feel those things or think that that's what's happening. But it's more that, you know, and human design talks about this, but science is already trying to explore this as well. We genetically are mutating on such a deep level that we are going to be able to have the capacity to hold so much more of understanding what it is to be alive. And so what's happening right now is that there is this kind of like dissolving of the physical boundaries, dissolving of the identity as just being me in this body. And that's how I'm, you know, I call myself and how I think of myself on this short ride called life, right? And so, in order to help us connect more to the stuff that is just our own thought realms, our own exploratory realms, our own ability to read energy more, we actually do need to identify less with the body. So, also just have so much grace for yourself if you feel like you are going through your life, because yeah, the body has to do the things that the body does, and it has to like go pick up the kids from school, or it has to just like write the email, or it has to brush its teeth or whatever. But it's just kind of not like hitting in the same way as it traditionally has, and that's kind of throwing you a little bit. It's because your ability to read energy is being more focused on by life. So life needs to actually bring the volume down on all the other things at the same time.
You know, I've actually been noticing this a lot in my own life, and I've made the connection of, you know, when we talk about your human design being like your body's sort of like the vehicle that carries your consciousness. And when you get that vehicle functioning correctly and in an aligned way, human design calls it passenger consciousness, you are sort of moving through life and your consciousness kind of feels like it's just like watching the car move. I've noticed that part of being moving through life in an aligned way for me is having extremely consistent routines, like doing the same thing every day, eating the same thing every day, having those routines in place actually allows my brain to do so much more observing. I've noticed more and more that as I'm going about my day, I'm actually not thinking at all about what I'm doing. Like, I'm not thinking about putting the laundry in the laundry anymore. I'm not thinking about the fact that I'm doing the dishes, or I have to cook this meal for myself, or I have to shower and I have to brush my teeth and all those things, because those things have kind of become routine and autopilot for me. So that as I'm moving through all of those things, my mind is doing so much like thinking that I'm enjoying. I'm like enjoying the process of those very humdrum things
Mm.
more because am I like freeing up my mind to be able to do that? Is that what you're referring to? And I know it's different for everybody. Not everybody needs routines in order to allow themselves to do that. But is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. And like you said, it's a different experience for everyone. So it might not be exactly like that for you if you're listening, but it's just as if it's almost like eerie that you're watching your human self do its human thing, and yet you're not like identified with it. You're just like watching it as if you're something separate from it. And you're right, we do call it passenger consciousness. Right now, it's kind of the detachment is happening so much more strongly. And there is this like weird withdrawal or come down when you don't identify with that part of you, when you are newly watching yourself, because you're like, this feels like an ego death in a weird way. And why don't I feel so controlling of my like persona? And why don't I feel so like invested in every tiny little thing that I do? You're just allowing your body to do it and just kind of sitting back. So that is what's happening. But exactly for the reason that you're saying is that what's happening as a result is you're freeing up space for your consciousness to pop. And that's why we have to be able to let go of be so front in our own movie and just kind of be able to be okay with watching it from behind and knowing that like weirdly the body has its own consciousness, that it knows how to do things, and it especially knows how to do things that it does all the time. So we don't need to be so up in the grill of the body for want of a better word. But that really brings me to the third point that I wanted to make in this podcast, where it's a now more important than ever time, given that we are becoming more frequency than matter, and that our bodies are mutating, and that our body is the house where our consciousness sits, right? It is the place, the thing that holds the consciousness. Like otherwise, where does it all sit in this world called, you know, Earth? Is inside the body. And so because we are shifting from understanding things as more vibration, and we are understanding the fact that we have this conduit always to the divine, and not only is it mental but it is also physical, meaning that you can improve and increase your ability to conduct those frequencies if you have a conductor that is able to pull those types of frequencies, right? So why is having a gold listening device better than having one that's made of lead? Because gold has a different frequency that is able to pick up finer things, right? So in the same way, we need to turn what is lead in our bodies into gold. Now, we talk a lot about how we can do that mentally, but the densest part, which is always going to be the part that holds it to its lowest point, right, at any given time, that is always going to be the limitation or the ceiling on how much we can conduct, is the physical self, is the body. And so I really feel called to share that there is so much food noise out there, and part of the distraction is to tell the ego that it has to be this really complex thing that we need to learn so much about and know so much about and constantly stay abreast of all the new information. But if we just look at it from the lens of vibration, if we are interested in raising our frequency and actually raising our frequency, like if you put a frequency measure on your body, what would it measure, right? I'm not just saying this in a woo-woo way. Like if you actually measured the frequency of what your body is emitting, what would be different? How we can actually do that is by raising the electromagnetic frequency of the body. Now, electromagnetic. So what happens is that we have to raise the electricity inside the body. Now, electricity inside the body, i.e., everything firing quicker and more smoothly and more seamlessly, is created by the presence of certain minerals that allow those things to fire quickly and to conduct quickly, right? So, not only from neuron to neuron, all the way down the spine, and then from there onto everywhere else from the CNS, the central nervous system, but also from the fact that most of our DNA is a conductor of electricity and a conductor of light, and it is funneling in light codes all the time. And so, what assists with these processes is the presence of um, alkaline ash inside the body. So, sodium, magnesium, manganese. Let me get this right from my nutrition training. Iron, sodium. I want to say phosphorus. I could be missing out one or two. But anyway, you can Google that. But the point being is that when we talk about what is acid and what is alkaline, we've heard that term being thrown around so much, like eat more alkaline, and people don't even know why it's important. But from a frequency perspective, it's because when we have net presence of alkalinity inside our bodies, that literally translates as a more electric body. And so, one of those layers of bodies that I was talking about is also the electric body. That is walking around as if you are the light. That is being a conductor. That is being a greater light bulb, right? And so, this is not just like a woo woo thing. This is a tangible thing that you can do to actually enable your own mind to have higher consciousness thoughts naturally without you having to necessarily like work so hard to reach them, because you can reach in the dark. But if you're always coming up against resistance or it's a harder push, then it's just going to be a harder life. So what I really am seeing now, and the astrology also is confirming this, because we have, starting now very soon, actually this week, the time you're listening to it, we're fully in eclipses that are in the Virgo and Pisces axis. And Virgo, which is where the South Node is all about. So the South Node is always where we have to release. And Virgo is all about the body and all about health. And Virgo, though, where we have to release is the negative side of that. So that is all the control, all the overthinking, all the structuring, all the sort of being too into the details, right? And we have to do the positive versions of that. And why? So that we can reach into the opposite, which is the North Node, which is Pisces. And Pisces is the opposite of Virgo, right? In the astrological wheel, it's the opposite sign. And that's why we always have North and South nodes in opposite signs, because the Pisces North Node is wanting us to stretch into Piscean areas of life. So that is spirituality, dissolved boundaries, liminal space, the subconscious, dreams, connection to the divine, death, ego death as well, and death of old selves, and being under the sea, right? It's that swimming, that creativity, that imagination. And so we have to get the body right and release the rigidity of it in order to be able to stretch into what life is trying to stretch us into right now, which is that North Node and Pisces. So all this overthinking and over control and sort of hyperfixation on the body has to go, and we've got to make it radically simple, and we've got to make it radically about consciousness. Because when you make it radically about consciousness, all the other stuff takes care of itself, like feeling vital, feeling great, looking great, having good skin, healing the eczema, blah 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 blah. And so it's not necessarily that we have to give up or demonize all the other foods that are not God's food, right? Everything that is alkaline is a fruit and a vegetable. And I want to make it really clear that, again, the negative way of going about that is to either try and go radically only eating fruits and vegetables, right? Or to demonize other things, or to idolize other things, right? So it's not like, oh, I have to give up fries and burgers and pizzas and then my life is going to be better. It's to say, you know what, gently on myself, I'm just going to get very honest about the fact that there are certain things that are not that, but that I still want to keep them in for the reasons I want to keep them in. I want comfort. Also because I really do know this, that, and in Kabbalah they say this too, and when they teach you nutrition they say this too. Sometimes it's more unfair on the body to make shocking physiological changes too quick, and we do live in a quote unquote dirtier world. So we need to sort of still keep one foot in, matching a little bit of. We can't expect ourselves to be completely free of plastic, completely free of fragrances, because we still fly on planes, or we still pick up a Starbucks or whatever it is, right? So it's about being gentle and understanding about the things we do that are not God's food, and understanding that those things have an important place, but also not lying to ourselves that wine is good for us for the antioxidants, or that, we have to eat meat because of this and that and the other. Like, we are going to understand that those things are just a frequency and they give us something for now. They make us feel good. But we're not eating those things because they contain a certain nutrient. They are providing us with necessary density that we do need as we make this transition. And density isn't always bad. Density can be comfort, density can be grounding, density can be calming, it can be bringing you back down to earth, it can be bonding, it can be staying in the world, right? It can be all those things. But we go in and we engage in those things knowing that that's what they're doing. And we know that we also want to be at the same time simultaneously gently encouraging ourselves to include more of the foods that are going to increase our physical vibration, because that is the most important thing that those things can be bringing to our bodies now, is to become better conductors of light. And light is consciousness and consciousness is light. And if we want to give our consciousness the best possible match in a house that it can find, we have to elevate the house.
So maybe said in another way too, to help people. So when you're talking about raising your consciousness, it's also, you're saying, is raising the ability to pick up on something different or more than what you're currently able to pick up on. And so if all possible things that can, will, or ever exist do exist in some way in like the energy field that this physical vessel has the ability to pick up on, this physical vessel is the only way to take things from there and turn them into physical reality. And so if your vessel was designed in a specific way to pick up on a specific thing, idea, concept, physical thing that needs to come into reality, if your physical vessel is capable of picking up on that thing, getting your vessel as clear as possible and as connected to that as possible is your job, so that you can actually hear, for lack of a better word, or sense, for lack of a better word, what you're capable of bringing into physical reality.
And I would actually look at what your strongest sense is in your design for this, because that's usually the sense through which you'll pick up a lot of these extra things, you know? Like for example, if your sense is feeling, you will pick up the energy. If you are smell, how would you describe, because your strongest sense of smell, like it's literally like it's a sense, isn't it?
It is, but I think it's more of a sense than we're currently taught to think about senses. Like
Yeah.
we're taught to think about senses as this one layer where it's like, I smell that scent. It's actually through scent that I hear, feel, see,
Mhm.
taste more
Mhm.
about of life.
Mhm.
And so when I have that sense cleared and I'm utilizing it in the way that I interact with people, in the way that I eat, in the way that I work, I have certain scents that I use when I'm working, I have certain scents I use when I'm falling asleep. Like when I interact with life via that sense, I hear, taste, see, smell, experience more.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to say too, I want to point out is when you're talking about that these denser things that we maybe put into our body sometimes, like I still eat meat, I still like sometimes will eat like sub sandwiches, stuff like that. I actually don't think every single person, their goal in this lifetime is to go from this to completely perfectly alkaline
No.
meal. It's when you're saying that they're a tool, those things are currently a tool. It's because imagine that your human vessel is capable of feeling all things. Like it, if you were completely perfectly aligned, none of us are. There would be so many things that you're experiencing that you can't even label or fathom right
Mhm.
now. And so to go from how we're currently experiencing life to that would be absolutely jolting to anyone that currently exists right now. Now, you can use food. What you're saying is you can use food to slowly incrementally open yourself up to more of that depending on what you feel capable of. So me, for example, like I'm very clear that listening to my authority right now puts me at a place of alkaline or cleanliness that like I'm comfortable experiencing right now. And
Mhm.
I'm okay with that. I don't need to experience more than what I am currently open to experiencing, and that doesn't take away from my life experience. That doesn't, maybe this is the perfect amount that I'm supposed to let in for my entire life. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We have to go at the pace of love. And getting to a false result, this imagined end point, is not the end point. There's so much pain and suffering, I think, that gets caused by us humans by making up these endpoints and then making ourselves suffer for as long as we're not there, and like living for that false moment that's in the future, which never comes, because then we just keep moving the goalpost, or it's so imagined that we don't even know how to tell if we've even gotten there or are on our way there. And so it's really not about being perfectionist, because again, that's one of the things that we have to get rid of with that Virgo South node, is releasing that control and the perfectionism and the sort of over fixation and the hyper micromanaging of it all, right? That those are the negative traits of Virgo. And so it's definitely not about being perfectionistic, but it's also not about the opposite. Negative of Pisces is being delusional. So we can't be delusional about, getting caught up in the details of, is it better to have blueberries at lunch or at dinner because of whatever, blood sugar, or because the antioxidants are better absorbed at night, or this or that? Like, all of that has to go. And so that actually feeds into what you're saying, so that your authority can take over, right? Your decision maker in your design, right? Because you have gotten yourself the only cleanse that you need to do, which is an information cleanse on all the things that other people are telling us to do. And then just to really recognize that the only thing we need to know is that we want to dial up on the things that are vibration raising when we feel ready. We know that we have those tools there, and that we still also need to keep in the things that lower vibration, because low vibrations are not always bad. What I will say though is that now in particular is a time to just like push ourselves to just like the gentle neck stretch of what our current thing looks like for us. Like, just one or two things, like, can you just include a bit more fruit? Do you need to get in 120 grams of protein a day, or can you have like some sweet potato instead of with veggies, instead with your quinoa and God knows what, instead of having to have cram in the 6 egg whites or whatever it is, right? So, and again, that's control. And again, that's waking up with this like goal and this numbers and this all of that keeps us out of that like flowing of life. And I've said this before, we are going to realize that, especially as we move into being more frequency based and matter based, we're not going to need food as much as we do. It's not, we're going to recognize that we get energy from so many other things, that our bodies make their own nutrients based on the air and the sunlight and our consciousness and our thoughts and our joy. And being in the sea is the most mineralizing thing, things like that we know already, right? Which is much better than taking, a mineral beauty water or whatever it is, right? So not that those things are bad. Again, they all play their part, but just to not take any of the food things so seriously, like we're over invested in it now. And also to understand that there are certain things we can add into our bodies that literally increase the electromagnetic frequency of a food. And when we talk about vibration, what we literally mean is when we're looking at an atom under a microscope, like it's gently moving all the time. And a high vibration is one where it's moving more quickly at a faster speed. So what does that mean? It's like more bits per minute, right? It's a song where you can increase the speed more,
It's
when you're
higher.
like playing the DJ, you can play with the energy of the song more. You have more leeway to bring it down or bring it up or speed it up or make the tone up and down or whatever. If we're more fixed, we can't do much to the song.
It's like higher processing power is what you're talking about. If you were to put it in technical terms,
Mm,
you clean up the body, you feed the body things that increase its processing power. It That's what I'm getting from it.
yeah. Perfectly
And
said.
honestly, when I've told you before we even started this conversation, because you said this is what I want to talk about, and I said, I'm even getting this more and more. I'm understanding that there's more to what I'm putting in my body than what I have ever associated that with. And it's become easier because I think about it this way instead of just like in an aesthetic way.
Mm.
I think sometimes like reaching for a reason to even take care of this physical body that doesn't have to do even with just like the way you look or how clear your skin is or how shiny your hair is. I don't know, those things were never a motivator for me. I thought they were. They were actually me just beating myself up, thinking like, "Oh, like I'm eating this way and it's making me look this way. I have to eat better so that I don't look this way anymore." But instead of and thinking of food and the things that we put into our body as this,
Mm.
that to me is for me, a far more interesting thing to reach for.
That's really interesting because I was someone who really did associate it with looking a different way because I had such bad skin for, I mean, 5, 6 years. And that was a real detriment to, my self-esteem. So I feel like I really understand that type of cycle of pain because I was in it for such a long time. And I feel very gifted in the fact that I did have to start eating better for my looks, for want of a better word, to then get that it's about something else. So there's a there's a beauty in the fact that I kind of learned it accidentally because I definitely was at that time definitely not someone who was interested in spirituality. And that's what made me learn about nutrition. I don't know if I ever told you this. When I was like 19 or 20, I used to study nutrition on the weekends. Um, at this nutrition school right outside of London. I had a full-time job at the time. And that's so you basically learn all the chemistry, the physics, and the biology that you need to become like a nutrition doctorate or whatever. And they prepare you because I didn't go to college. So I needed to do all that. And that's where I learned about like, alkaline, what makes a food alkaline. It's depositing those ashes. It's been a while, so I couldn't remember those exact ones, but they literally improve the conductivity in your body. So, when you're like, had something really heavy the night before and you feel like your head is foggy, it's that literal, right? So imagine to an
Mhm.
extent that happening all the time. And I feel so tentative sometimes about talking about food because I know it's such an intimate subject and I know it can be so easily misinterpreted or taken as dogmatic, but the reason why I think it's so important is because it is literally the energy that's going on in the world right now is pushing all of us to need to do that. And I want to share this before it's almost like late to the party to say this, right? Because you are going to see people talk about how you can increase the electromagnetic frequency of your body by all these things, especially the physical. Like we talk a lot about the consciousness side and we talk a lot about the emotional side. We talk a lot about the mental side and the attitude and the, cleaning up how your aura functions, which is what human design is all about. But we also can't leave out the physical because it is the one that is going to cap whatever else work we do and how much we are able to, like you said, like pull down or reach for all the possible threads that were given to our soul to reach for in this lifetime. So in the same way that that a hangover day is not the day you're going to be wanting to meditate, take that to the more subtle versions of how your everyday life plays out. And there are serious ramifications to that. We just don't know that they're that serious because they're happening to us maybe every day. So this is just a very, very gentle push to say if this resonates with you, take care of your vibration, take care of raise the frequency of the house that your soul is taking up, because it really does pay back how, and this, how much easier it's almost so low lift to have these like incredible aha moments when your mind just feels so like clear and unfettered and unencumbered by other stuff that it's having to like your bodily processes are having to encumber themselves with. And so then you find that gosh, I really believe that everybody is capable of having incredible consciousness effortlessly. We just have to get out of the way. And that's what I really want us to know, is like these low lift things mean that we're not going to have to work so hard to be in touch with our divine self. I want us to feel like it's right in us. I want us to feel like it's this close, and it's not that I have to torture myself and do a 3-hour routine every morning to just even get to like one taste of that in my day, but that I'm swimming in the taste of it all day long. And that's why I really want to encourage our cluster to do everything that they can, all the tools available to us to be able to live that experience, because that's ultimately gonna be the thing. And maybe this is a whole other conversation, but gonna bring us into our genius, gonna make us feel like we are a fractal of the divine, especially with this fear mongering of like AI is coming, our genius is being threatened, what's our contribution? We're only gonna get over that when we feel like, oh, I'm so divine that none of that is even a conversation that I need to have, because I feel this like magicalness, specialness that's inside me. So why am I feeling threatened? You only feel threatened when you feel powerless, when you feel like you have to work so hard to feel good about yourself, when you have to work so hard to feel connected to something greater than what man can invent, right? And so with all these changes that are happening so quickly, if you can build this like a beautiful garden within that is full of effortlessly amazing thoughts, like, when we were talking about what you're able to reach for, it's like this ability to always access more beautiful feeling thoughts on a regular basis. And that is the ultimate combat and solution to everything that we currently think is a problem. And that's why this is important now more than ever.
And human design just happens to be the thing that grounds us in the ability to even experience life in the way that you're describing. And that is something that I think anyone listening to, I trust that they can turn to their design, their authority to find a way to exist their way in a world that this is true. So if you haven't, we actually haven't even mentioned it really on the podcast, that we just released the 3.0 version of the app. I think last week we mentioned that we changed the app name to Align the Human Design app. Obviously, you've noticed that this is Align the Human Design podcast. So if you're curious about that name change, you can listen to last week's episode. But if you're listening to this and you haven't downloaded the app, I would recommend it as almost like a grounding tool to help you get through and kind of walk side by side with all of us in these changes that are happening. And if you do have the app and you haven't updated it, I would update your app, because it's a whole new experience in there. 100% new experience.
Ultimately, if you picked being alive in this time, you picked it so that you could be part of this change that is happening from collective to individual. So we are all here to individuate and be radically different kinds of humans than have ever been experienced in this world ever before. And so human design came in 40 years ago in preparation for the 2027 change, and obviously all the years running up to it that are where the transition is taking place, where our job is to be really exactly who we came here to be. And you learn exactly who you came here to be when you learn about your design, because your design is just the science of your specific aura and how your specific aura functions. And so you always say, and I love this, Taylor, you're always on that tip where you're like, I can't wait until science makes the discoveries about all the stuff that Ra Uru Hu, the founder of human design, has literally been saying since, he's not alive anymore, but he said 38 years ago, he talked about how fast neutrinos, the subatomic particles, travel. And right now they're doing experiments on the neutrinos in the South Pole. He talked about the star Sirius and how it's already died out. And he talked about how Jupiter, the planet, is in charge and plays a role in our human incarnation. And maybe we'll find that out one day. And he talked about so many different things in terms of like the cosmology of the world. And so this is based in stuff that is just ahead of its time. And so we just now are learning that we have, a vibration, but the mystics have talked about auras for thousands and thousands of years. Human design is just the way that we can actually measure and understand it in a way that is very sort of tangible, rather than like in the old days, you probably had to go to an aura reader, right? Who was in the back of the church or something, and or the downstairs in the cave in the forbidden place outside the village, with a wig on and in disguise. And now we're living in a time where we're so lucky because this information is so easily accessible to us. And people have fought for years to be outliers to get this information out to us. Like Ra was a freaking, people thought he was a absolutely bat, and some people probably still do. If you talk to a mainstream scientist, they might think, what is this, right? The same with, I was telling you about Rev Berg and Karen, who brought Kabbalah out to so many ever more people than were ever allowed to experience or learn it than ever before. And that's always happened with any type of wisdom, is it had to come out of the closet at some point. And too much at first, scoff and cynicism and questioning, until one day it becomes mainstream. So that, if you are someone who's learned about your design, you really are an early adopter who has it in you to know things that feel true before they get proven and commonly accepted. And so in the same way with that, like, you're a renegade with everything else. So let's lean into this becoming more matter, less matter, excuse me, more frequency. Let's lean into the fact that our dreams are giving us messages. Let's lean into the fact that we take them seriously. Let's lean into the fact that we don't feel like we're so identified with the self moving through the world. And let's lean into the fact that we are getting as much nutrition from joy and connection in the sun, and that we are literally increasing our frequency and our consciousness when we eat a piece of celery, for example. And it doesn't have to be this like we're consuming stem cell infused green powdered collagen high protein something, right? Like, it can be, and it always has been, so simple, because it is literally just us and divine energy. And the closer we are to divine energy, which we're moving towards now in every which way, the better life gets. That's all it is.